Today we found out who all the 16 Champions League teams are going to play each other in the knockouts. Some things went correctly in my draw predictions. Others were just not quite as accurate. But let me walk you through the projections for the rest of the Champions League and what we can expect over the course of these last knockout rounds in terms of matchups and predictions and scenarios of what could happen. So here we have Atletico Madrid going up against Juventus. And here, Atletico Madrid and Juventus, you got to go with Juventus here. The reason why Juventus face Madrid against Ajax, they played in the 1996 final. They instead play Atletico. Cristiano Ronaldo gets to head back to Madrid really briefly for a day or two. Also, Mario Mandzukic used to play with Atletico in 2014, 2015. A Juventus striker. He scored a goal in the 2017 final. So that's what I saw happening for Juventus and Atletico Madrid. So here to advance to the quarterfinals, it would be Juventus. Now, I would really like to face Ajax in the next round. I think if Ajax upset Real Madrid, then Ajax can face off against Juventus. But unfortunately, I think Cristiano Ronaldo is going to visit Madrid once again for 2 consecutive rounds. Faces off against Atletico, then knocks off Real Madrid in the quarters. We got to talk about Real Madrid as being really prime contenders. So let's look out for that. And then we have Manchester City, and we have German club Schalke. Here, obviously, Manchester City should win against Schalke. But here on this side of the bracket, we have Liverpool going up against Bayern Munich. Well, is Jurgen Klopp going to get his payback against the Bavarians? Well, the Bavarians are still a really strong team in this competition. We have to go with Bayern Munich over Liverpool. Their run to the final last year, Porto, Roma, and Manchester City, they did not face Juventus. They did not face Bayern Munich, PSG, Real Madrid, all these teams before the final. Then they get destroyed by Real Madrid. So I say Bayern Munich is the real deal still in terms of being a top 6 contender. We have PSG on the other side going up against Manchester United. And here, I'm going to go with PSG to advance to the quarterfinals. On this side of the bracket, we should see Tottenham Hotspur against Borussia Dortmund. Here, this can go either ways. Tottenham is the club with the roster. PSG has Kylian Mbappe. Kylian Mbappe plays for the club with the roster. Paul Dybala is a rooster in Chinese astrology. He ends up knocking out Tottenham last year in the round of 16. I got to pay my respects to Borussia Dortmund. They're in first place, and I see some revenge narratives in this knockout stage. We have, Barcelona and Paris Saint-Germain, that round of 16 matchup, but we also have Borussia Dortmund being demoted to the Europa League because they couldn't end up securing a Champions League spot. Instead, it went to Real Madrid and Tottenham, and these teams in familiar territory. It is former PSG players Serge Aurier and Lucas Moura that scored a pivotal goal in the last round. Although I'm going to go with Dortmund. There's another PSG narrative with Dortmund on this side of the bracket. There are PSG narratives for Tottenham, but there also is for Borussia Dortmund. Thomas Tuchel managed Borussia Dortmund from 2015 to 2017. So this should be the teams that are going to be on this side of the bracket here. The winner here can go either way. But I'm going to go pay my respects to Dortmund, their quick start in Bundesliga. I don't think they're a joke with the way they're playing so far. Now, in my draw video, I correctly stated that don't be surprised to see Roma draw against Porto because of their new stadium. So they need this TV money coming in from the Champions League to help finance the new stadium. Roma ends up getting Porto in the round of 16. Roma should be able to win against Porto, setting up the revenge matchup against Barcelona. We have Lyon and Barcelona facing off against each other on this side of the bracket. And it should be Barcelona. They're going to end up beating Lyon in this round. They should be able to move on. It should be Barcelona that's going to face off against Roma in a matchup of revenge. So on this side of the bracket, I notice there's a lot of revenge here. Dortmund for being knocked out by Tottenham here. Roma and Barcelona for last year. So interesting storylines on this side of the bracket here. Now the third thing of Ronaldo going back to Madrid, facing off against Real Madrid. I imagine he faces off against Manchester United. This is his Champions League here. Juventus to knock off Real Madrid here. Once again, if Ajax beats Real Madrid, I expect them to face off against Juventus. So here, semifinals, Juventus, Manchester City. We have Pep Guardiola. Manchester City used to manage Borussia Dortmund. He managed he managed Bayern Munich, from 2013 to 2016. He faces off against Bayern Munich again, and it's Manchester City that's going to end Bayern Munich's run to the semifinals. Partly has to do with how Pep Guardiola is managing Manchester City, because they are improving in the Champions League. So this brings us to the other side of the bracket, where PSG, I think, will face off against Dortmund if this happens. And here, PSG, I'm going to go for the victory against Borussia Dortmund here. PSG should be able to win against Dortmund, and PSG would then face off against FC Barcelona. And here, Barcelona is going to get some revenge against PSG is going to get revenge against Barcelona because of that 6-1 ordeal. The final is being played on 6-1. So here we've got Juventus. Yes, we've got Juventus going up against PSG. And ultimately, the winner of the Champions League between Juventus and Paris Saint-Germain, I'm going to go with, let's see, I may need to add another box. And this should be able to make more sense here. Just have to follow along logically here. You need two finalists on the same side. So here's the champion. Finalist and finalist. And here, PSG and Barcelona, well, it's going to be PSG that's going to end the dream of Ronaldo against Messi in the final. Juventus were the last team to knock out Real Madrid. It was Juventus, Barcelona, instead of Real Madrid against Barcelona in the Champions League final. And Juventus should be able to win at Manchester. 2 trips to Manchester. Manager Massimiliano Allegri is familiarizing himself with the Manchester area. I think he'll become the next Manchester United manager. And Juventus and Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League final under this projection. The winner of the European Cup is going to be Juventus to end a 23-year Champions League title drought. Cristiano Ronaldo heads back home to Madrid for a third time, and he makes the Bianconeri winners of Europe once again. So these are all of my Champions League knockout predictions in this light, this initial projection here, and what we can expect. Juventus, this is a sure thing. Real Madrid, almost certainly positive, 75% chance. If Juve doesn't face Real, they get Ajax. City and Bayern Munich, I'm really positive about. But Bayern Munich and City are locks at this point to win in the next round. Barcelona and Roma are locks. PSG is a lock. The only thing I'm not really quite sure on this side of the bracket is Tottenham and Dortmund, but I'm going to go with Dortmund. But there are the storylines for both Dortmund and Tottenham. Former coach of PSG could face off against his former team, or it's the former players of Tottenham that can face off against PSG. This is what we could expect in a snapshot, and once again, we should see how the conclusion of the round of 16 is and how the draw turns out for the quarterfinals.